Hey, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy excellence, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy glory. All the good stuff that you're hoping to get out of a fantasy football website, out of a fantasy football podcast, we're bringing it all to you. And this is episode 8 out of 8. We hit every division. We're actually doing this. Now, we did start about 8 minutes late today, so we apologize to anyone who's been hanging around, had some software difficulties. But we're doing it. This is the AFC South. It's not the most exciting division in the league, but it's probably not the worst, least exciting division in the league either. And this is it. This is going to complete the division, masterpiece, extravaganza, whatever you want to call it. My name is Nat the Truth Jones. I'm your host. With me, as always, in a hot, stifling apartment on the North Shore, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. How you doing?
I'm hot, Nat. I was going to say I'm doing great, but I'm not going to lie to you folks out there. I am dying over here. I do have AC, but if I put it on, the audio gets picked up. I'm a little less clear on here. So those are the sacrifices. You got to have to deal with a real sweaty wolf on the screen here if you're with the video. But for you podcast listeners, I'll go through hell and back to make sure I get you crystal clear audio. But I am doing good, Nat. I'm pumped. I can't believe we've made it through all 8 divisions. It seems like just yesterday we were starting up with the NFC. We got a doozy here with the AFC South. Some real shitty teams, but a couple loaded studs to get into as well. So I can't wait to dive into this with you.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. I feel like at least half the divisions that we've done, I've said at the beginning, like, wow, what a steaming pile of shit. So maybe that's more just a reflection that most divisions, top to bottom, aren't very good. This certainly falls into that category. Like I said, it's not the worst, but it's like, I don't know, 6th best out of 8, something like that. It's not good. Right. What's a good division? Tell me what divisions you think are good. I'd say the NFC West.
I'd say the AFC North, the one we did yesterday, has a real potential, especially if the Bengals, Burrow's the real deal and that offense takes off. I think that's going to be a tough division each and every week. The one with the Seahawks, the 49ers.
NFC West, and I think maybe NFC North also. It's
exactly.
not bad. I mean, we'll see if the Bears are any good.
If Fields is the real deal, we know the Lions won't be, but otherwise it's going to be a competitive division.
The Lions will not be good. All right, so anyway, that's like 3 divisions. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to get right into the AFC South, and we're going to start with a team that is probably the centerpiece of just about everybody's fantasy lineup, the Houston Texans.
Before you go, Nat, you know what I'm going to ask for. I'm going to be my slutty self. If you guys are enjoying the content, please consider giving us a thumbs up. It helps us get out to more people, continue to grow the Wolfpack, a free and easy way. Get your questions on, and you guys know we'll answer them all live after we get through these teams in about 40 minutes. And if you were catching the replay, but you have questions, as you should know by now, I answer them all in the comments and, of course, at Roto Street Wolf as well. So thank you guys in advance. If you consider giving us a thumbs up, it would mean the world to us. Thank you guys.
All right. With that said, like I said, you're probably building your fantasy team around the Texans, and so we're going to start off with them, right?
Right.
We're going to start with
anchor
of any respectable fantasy team. Quarterback 28 on your projections board, Tyrod Taylor. You got him at 295 out of 480, 3,400 yards, 21 touchdowns, 11 picks, 63 rushes for 346 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't even see him on your big board. Like, he might not have even been on your top. It's possible I overlooked him, but it's possible he didn't make your top 35 or whatever. You're not that excited about Tyrod Taylor.
Certainly not. No, there's no real reason to draft him unless you're in one of those very, very deep best ball leagues and you have a horrible quarterback situation. But even still, there's like the risk that Deshaun Watson could return and end up playing for them. I don't expect him. I don't think he'll play a snap. And I guess we should start at the top in that sense. Like, if Watson plays, then this team does become mildly interesting, mildly entertaining, because this guy did lead the league in passing last year. But assuming he's out, and it seems like he himself doesn't want to play it down, plus there's the mystery of what's going to happen with his legal situation. We don't need to speculate on that. So we're going to go through these assuming Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback, in which case you're not going to want to draft pretty much any of these Texans, including Tyrod Taylor. The one thing he has going for him is he can run. He is mobile. So there's a little bit of leg point upside there. But ultimately, there's really not much. Disgusting quarterback situation. I know we're going to turn our attention to the backfield. As it says right here, too, Dontrell Hillard. Pretend like that's Mark Ingram. I talked to the RotoViz guys. I think they fixed it at this point. But right before we went live, Mark Ingram was not in there. So assume that is Mark Ingram. Nat, I just wanted to kind of give you that preface as well. But yeah, Tyrod Taylor, no need to spend much time on him. There's no reason to draft him.
We're still not going to talk very much about Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
So you may have done a little bit of flipping between Philip Lindsay and David Johnson. When I did my research, and I know you've changed some stuff, and I may have missed this, I had them getting a pretty even split with Johnson getting a few more. I think you've changed that so it's actually Lindsay getting a few more. Is that right?
Yes, so Lindsay's been the first guy in both preseason games. In fact, Mark Ingram came in ahead of David Johnson when he played in the second preseason game. So once Ingram's in there, I'm going to flip those guys even further. Johnson's coming in a couple third downs, but he's the clear third fiddle here, which is kind of wild because he had a great end to last year, and that's also wild to even say. He outscored December Derrick Henry in December, David Johnson did last year. But the team seems to no new coaching staff, and I guess I should have started at the top with that. Is Cully comes in there from the Ravens passing game coordinator. Nothing like making the passing game coordinator of the worst passing attack last year as your head coach. Great idea, Texans. They are just a dumpster fire of an organization. That's all to say. I think this team is going to be hideous. The lowest amount of plays run as a team, 418 rush attempts, 480 pass attempts, low volume for everybody involved at all facets of the game, including the backs, including the quarterbacks. They're going to be so bad that they're going to need to try to put up points. I just don't think they have the horses anywhere on the field to be able to do so. Unless, again, of course, Deshaun Watson plays, everything in these projections will change.
Right.
But as of now, it's just hideous. A gross overall offense, a gross play caller. And speaking of David Culley, he comes again, as I said, from the Ravens. They love their three-man committees. Always, their whole thing is to mess with defenses like, who's going to be our back? Maybe a good real-life strategy. Horrible for fantasy football. So there's nobody in the running game. Yeah, Lindsay's starting. Yeah, he's going to get the most volume. I see a lot of people tweeting about that. But it's going to be the worst offense in the NFL if Deshaun Watson's not playing. Do we really want any piece of a three-headed nightmare? As you see it right here, 146 carries for Lindsay, less than 600 yards, 4 TDs. 125 for David Johnson, 500 yards, 4 TDs. Mark Ingram probably going to have more TDs than any of the two at like 5 with another 75 carries there. You look at the way I distributed it, 35, 30, 20, and 15 to the quarterback. That is just not a ground pie anybody wants to be involved in.
All right, I'm going to make 2 quick points about the backfield. We've already spent too much time on the Houston Texans backfield. But
yes.
First thing is you've got Lindsay and Johnson both in the 50s as far as your running backs on the big board. So no interest of any kind for real. It's also, you brought up the three-headed monster. It's the worst kind of three-headed monster because it's 3 guys that have all been the guy before.
Right.
Like it's David Johnson, it's Philip Lindsay, it's Mark Ingram. These are guys that have all had some degree, and in Johnson's case, a huge amount of success other places. These guys all think they should be the guy. They're all going to want their touches, and
right.
What a bunch of garbage.
And I think that's a really good point, too, Nat. It's not like a Patriots backfield when James White's at least getting the catches. Damian Harris is going to get a lot of the carries, and there might be a third guy who works in here, like Ramondre Stevenson, every now and again to give Harris a breather. All 3 of these guys can do it on every down, and that's probably the point of it, is they're going to have them just alternate series after series. No rhythm, no cadence, no consistency, nothing. Just don't. The answer to the Houston Texans backfield is no.
I hate it. You did talk before about how if Deshaun Watson, doesn't play, you don't want to touch anybody else in this team. The one guy on the team I don't hate is Brandin Cooks. That's going to be their wide receiver 1. You've got him going for 79 catches, a little over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's on 125 targets. That's good enough only for your wide receiver 46 on projections. You got him 39 on the big board. I don't know if that's low, or maybe it's just like I'm kind of looking for a diamond in the rough. It's hard to argue he's going to produce much more than that, but for some reason I don't mind him as a late round stab. You've got Nico Collins as the next guy, so it's like falling off a cliff a little bit after that. You got him for 44 catches, 550, 5 touchdowns. Not much to get excited about, although I said I do kind of like Cooks as a talent still.
Yeah, I think Cooks actually shouldn't be excited about him, but you should be excited about what you could get at his price. He's going in round 9, round 10, and this is going to be a clear alpha. I mean, he already was the number 1, and that was with Will Fuller there. He's clearly and consistently put up 1,000 yards wherever he's at. Now he's been blessed with Drew Brees and Brady. Like he's won the lottery in terms of quarterbacks year in and year out until this year.
Right.
But still,
he did not win the lottery this year.
No, sure didn't. This is going to be the first year he's really played with a bad quarterback his entire career. So this will be a good measuring stick for like how good is this guy actually? Can he do 1,000 yards when he has complete steaming pile of shit throwing to him. Maybe. But I do think he is interesting because, one, there's no one else to throw to on a team that's going to be very often playing from behind, probably exclusively playing from behind this year. So that could be a lot of volume. As you see, 125-ish targets. If they actually play at a faster pace than I'm anticipating, maybe that gets bumped up to 150. He hits 1,100 and 7 touchdowns. You got yourself a nice little steal there in round 7, round 8, 9, 10, where he's going. So I actually do like Brandin Cooks. He is the single player on the Texans I'll actually invest in. Maybe Nico Collins really late, who's been impressing in camp. Big body guy, could be a red zone threat. The only issue is if you're never in the red zone, a red zone threat doesn't really matter. So yeah, there's nothing here besides Brandin Cooks that interests me. I don't even think we should even talk about the tight ends. 300
name's Jordan Akins.
What's the point? We don't. Why spend any?
If you're interested, the Wolves got him as his tight end 45 on the big board.
Yeah, you sprint, go get him. Absolutely, right. You must. You can't miss Jordan Akins. My God.
Yeah. In those seldom used but still very prestigious 3 tight end leagues that sometimes people play in, he might be a late round pickup, right? We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to a team who is
Brandin Cooks. That's all you need to know for the Texans.
Marginally better team, but not a team I'm too excited about. The Indianapolis Colts, of course, big change coming in. They bring in Carson Wentz, who immediately gets injured, and it seems like it's not looking great. I think he's maybe back at practice or whatever. Anyway, Carson Wentz, 371 for 549. A little over 4,100 yards, 29 touchdowns, 16 picks, 51 rushes for 204, 2 touchdowns. That's good enough for quarterback 22 on the projections board, but you got him down at 30 on the big board. You're not a believer in Wentz. I'm not a believer in Wentz either, certainly not fantasy-wise. I'm not touching that no matter what.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised he comes out that high on my projections. It's, I guess, ranked a little bit lower, one, because of the injury risk, as we've already seen in training camp. He is expected to be back for week 1, which is great for everyone here, especially Jonathan Taylor and the receivers, to have a quarterback that's actually competent under center. The one scenario that could play out well for Wentz is he was on pace for the MVP season when he had Frank Reich as his offensive coordinator. They love each other. There's always been this bromance between them. Wentz has openly talked about while he was with the Eagles how he wanted to get back to being with Reich. They traded a potential first rounder to go get him, and Reich has just completely sucked him dry ever since he arrived there. So there is this marriage that has worked before. But if Wentz is anything like what we saw last year, it doesn't matter who the play caller was. This guy couldn't find his receivers with any type of accuracy. I would also say, too, though, the one other thing that's intriguing about this Colts team is they are ranked in the top 5 in projected points by Vegas. And Vegas always is pretty good at nailing the best offenses. I don't know where those points are coming from, who they're going towards, but it's something just to note and pay attention to, because I think all of us out there projecting this offense is gross, stay away besides Jonathan Taylor. Whereas Vegas is this offense is sneaky to be a top 5 team in the NFL. It's a tricky balance. I don't see it, but Vegas also often sees things I don't and gets it right. So that's what I talked about there.
No, Vegas is right more than they're wrong. And you saying that gives me a little bit of pause, but I don't see it. We'll talk about the rest of the players and we'll see. And, I've certainly been proven wrong before, and maybe this is one where I'm going to get proven wrong again. We'll see. The stud of this team, fantasy-wise, and I guess just in reality, is Jonathan Taylor. He's their running back out of the backfield, 269 for 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns to go along with 38 catches for a little over 300 yards and a touchdown. He's followed by 2, I'm not going to say big names, but known commodities in Nyheim Hines, who got rushing maybe 60 times for 250 and 2 touchdowns, catching 60 balls. That's his big 62 balls for 465, 4 touchdowns. You got him getting 78 targets. That's not nothing. And then Marlon Mack, who seemed to be on the cusp of greatness a couple times in his career and always got hurt right before that happened. You got him getting 74 carries for around 300 yards and a touchdown. Rankings for these guys, you got Taylor 8 projected points, but you got him down at 11 on the big board. Hines, you got actually projected at 39, but down at 51 on the big board, and then Max in the 70s on both lists.
Yeah, that seems about right. Taylor, I mean, if this guy was handed the bell cow work, which he was last year, towards the end of the stretch, nobody outscored him over his last 4 games. The guy was an absolute monster. He's always been a joy to watch. Maybe one of the best 5 talents as a runner in terms of just a bull, but he can also catch. Like, he deserves pure stallion workhorse treatment. And Frank Reich's come out and said, like, he's the first man up. He earned it last year. So I like all of those things, but I also hate the fact that it took a Jordan fucking Wilkins injury for Taylor to actually be handed those reins full time. I don't think Hines is just going to disappear. He's a good receiver. The team has hyped him up again throughout camp. So that's going to kind of cap the receiving ceiling for Taylor. Marlon Mack, coming off the Achilles shouldn't be a factor, but I guess he's looking explosive in camp, and good for him. I'm not saying I'm rooting against him so for the sake of Taylor to be a better fantasy product. Like, I'd love to see Marlon Mack recover from the Achilles tear, because that just doesn't happen very often at the running back position. In fact, over the last 10 years, nobody has come back and actually had a meaningful season off an Achilles tear. And I don't think Mack will have a meaningful season, but he could be just involved enough to keep Taylor a little bit capped as he was last year. Love the player, just hate the coach who always insists on a hot hand committee approach. That should always be Taylor with the hot hand. It just wasn't always last year, and I can't sit here and say I'm 100% confident it's going to be again. So he typically falls to about round 2 for me, and he's usually going in round 1. Somebody else is going to take that leap ahead of me.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I like him, but I think other people like him more than I do.
Just to be clear with that too, though, like, if at the end of the year we're sitting here saying Jonathan Taylor's the number 1 running back in fantasy and Reich just decided to give him 350 touches like he deserves, well, that I am more like, that could easily happen, because again, it's a player I believe in. I have no doubt if he got the work, he could finish number 1. It's again a question about the work, but none of us will be shocked if he is the number 1 player because of how damn good he is. They're loving too. The best quote I read is like, he's helped them just completely turn around their identity in terms of like, you don't want to play this guy in joint practices. He is just steamrolling defenders left and right, like setting this physical tone to the offense. They're saying Pittman is doing the same at the receiver position, just laying people out down the field. I like that. Like, as a football fan, I like hearing about this team just kind of getting a little gritty, getting a little like tough. And you don't picture the Colts like that since Peyton Manning's always finesse, like, pretty little offense. It sounds like they're like embracing the fact that Taylor is the steamroller, and maybe that will lead to some more volume than we're expecting. I still don't buy it till I see it, though.
Yeah, I don't usually think of the Colts as a tough team either, although I think Marvin Harrison did like shoot somebody a few years ago, but that was after he was retired.
Right.
So that's the counterpoint. Yes. Let's talk receivers. So receiving, we got two. We got the corpse of T.Y. Hilton, who you've got projected for a whopping 51 catches for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns on 84 targets. And then you got Michael Pittman, who you were all about, you were all about him last year for a while, and I was highly skeptical. And I'm still highly skeptical. 57 catches, 735, 6 touchdowns for him, also on 84 targets. So pretty even split amongst those guys. You got them ranked right around the same, both on your projection list and your big board, right around 60.
Yeah. I mean, T.Y. Hilton, maybe Wentz can kind of revive him for 1 or 2 last seasons. Wentz does, for all his faults, have a strong arm. So maybe they're saying that was a good rapport early in camp before Wentz got hurt. Maybe that can get reignited for a single season. I've always loved Hilton as a player, but he's certainly on the back 9. He had 2 useful games last year and was just a huge dud the rest of the year. So I'm not going out there seeking out T.Y. Hilton. I guess the only thing working in his, and also all these receivers' favor, is they have the second easiest schedule throughout the year, and one of maybe the easiest in terms of the playoff schedule as well for these Colts receivers. So there is a little upside there. If there's one that is going to explode and be like an 1,100, 10 TD guy, though, that would be Michael Pittman. As you said, I was hyped up on him last year. I still believe in the player, believe in the talent. I think he's a very physical guy, a possession guy, helpful in the run game. There are a lot of comparisons to Michael Thomas coming out of college. I loved him. I thought the Colts got a steal with him in round 2, and I still wouldn't be shocked if he grew into himself. There's just a lot of receivers going in his range. Terrace Marshall, Marquez Callaway, a bunch of these round 10, 11 guys that I just like significantly more in terms of their offenses or their target share or just their ability. I just don't land Pittman really ever, even though I did love the player coming in. I'm not buying Wentz that much. And I think Reich's, again, just like he does with his backfield, always been a big believer in just spreading that wealth, which might make a good overall offense. And maybe that is why Vegas likes these guys. They might put some points up on the board, but you just might not.
And they might not, though.
They might not as well.
They might not. Like, it's kind of like when you talk about Pittman, and it's like, a lot of these guys you like and guys that I like, a lot of them are physical specimens. A lot of them are good talents. It's like you talked about, like Nico Collins. Oh, he's a big body, blah, blah, blah. It's like the same thing with Pittman and a guy like him. And I'm not necessarily comparing them directly, but it's like there's always going to be somebody I want more.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to own these guys. And
no, me neither. Like, and behind them, Pascal, no. Paris Campbell's a buzzy name, and a lot of people like him. He flashed before he got hurt last year, but he's run as the 4th receiver so far this preseason. There's just nobody, as you're saying. Like, I'm always going to go somewhere else before any of these wide receivers.
Now we talk tight ends. Nothing to get excited about here. I mean, our buddy Jack Doyle, who was an RSJ darling years ago.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, the adjustments you made to your projections in the last couple hours, you actually upped the tight end numbers a little bit for both these guys. Jack Doyle, 45 catches, 459, 3 touchdowns. Mo Alley Cox, 42 catches, 525, 4 touchdowns. So kind of even split there. You've got them on your big board. You got Doyle 35, Alley Cox 36. Projections, you have them both significantly higher, although not that high. You got Cox at 21 and Doyle at 25.
Yeah, it's the reason I bumped him up, Nat, and the receivers kind of took a ding because of it. The more I dug into Reich, he's always targeted the tight end position 25% or higher in all but 1 year so far with the Colts. And that kind of carries over from the Eagles. We've seen, all those years with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, but also beforehand too, there was always a heavy target share going to the tight end. So that's kind of the offense he's always been bred in. It's just a matter of, I don't love either player. Yeah, Jack Doyle, I love him for being
right. I love Jack Doyle as a person.
As a human, yes, right. Exactly. As a physical talent, not doing a whole lot
anymore. No.
Sure, steady hands. It might move the chains every now and again, but not the touchdown threat he used to be. That really never existed anyways. We just
it existed in our mind. He won a couple RSJ weekly Nutcracker awards at the tight end position, I believe.
Exactly, right. Yeah, he'd have those random 2 touchdown days. They're like, Jack motherfucking Doyle. We might have another 1 or 2 of those every now and again. Will always love the guy because the one time I made him my must play, he had a 10 catch, 1 TD day against the Titans.
Oh, I remember.
I'll always have a soft spot. I used him, again, I give advice that I use, and I used him in all my lineups that week because I had a guy on bye that I owned across all my leagues, and Doyle came through. So always will have a soft spot in my heart. I guess there's just a little bit of unsexy upside to 1 or 2 of these guys because of the amount of peppering they get from Frank Reich. But if I'm going to go in on one, I'm going to go for Mo Alley Cox, 6'5", athletic, flashed a ton of different times throughout last year. And there's no more Trey Burton. I wouldn't be surprised to see a useful fantasy tight end come from the Colts, but good luck picking out which one that's going to be. I think they're going to both another cheese nibbling situation. Plus Kyle Granson, an impressive rookie, has apparently been better than both of them throughout camp. So I think a good tight end is going to maybe emerge from the Colts, but I'm not going to spend my valuable draft capital figuring out who that is. I'll let it play out and maybe attack him on the waiver if somebody seems.
Sounds like a possible waiver pickup, if anything.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who for some reason, I don't watch much preseason football. I've watched more than usual this year. And for some reason, I've seen the Jaguars twice. And
well, they keep putting them in the primetime spots because of the rookie, Trevor Lawrence.
Well, let me just say I am pretty unimpressed with what I'm seeing. I know it's preseason. They look – often I watch with the sound off because I listen to podcasts, so I have headphones on, and so I've just kind of got it on in the background. So I don't know what the announcers are saying, but let me tell you something. This team does not pass the eye test right now. And also, as a separate note, I hate Urban Meyer. Yeah. So I cannot tell you how much I want this team to fail. And it really seems like they are failing. They just look miserable to me. Lawrence looks terrible to me. I mean, I don't know what to say. Well, we'll get into the numbers, and if you want, we can talk about the team a little bit. But you agree. It sounds like you're agreeing with everything I'm saying right now.
100%. They've looked hideous so far. And not only do we hate Urban Meyer, it sounds like emerging today, reports are the team hates Urban Meyer.
Oh, well, that doesn't shock me at all, but I'm really glad to hear that.
It's one of those – this was the report I was reading this morning, that one of the assistant coaches under Meyer's direction has a megaphone and a microphone every day, and he goes in it and is yelling at players hurry up to your next drill, no time for water, get out there, let's go, and is just chasing players around as if they're fucking high schoolers. I'm all for good, hard coaching and Belichick, the pinnacle of good, hard coaching, but treating these guys like they're fucking 2-year-olds on a Mighty Might team. Like, no way this locker room is going to stay under him. I think he is a surefire lock to be the first coach fired this year. Like, I think this experiment is going down extremely fast. I hope he doesn't take Trevor Lawrence, who coming out of college was like the surefire can't miss prospect. If anyone's going to fuck him up, though, it's going to be Urban Meyer.
People were talking about Trevor Lawrence like along the lineage of like, your surefire quarterbacks that come out, like your John Elways, your Andrew Lucks, like guys that like you're just like, oh, he's going to be great. Like no question about it. And so, I mean, I tend to pay attention, in the NBA when that happens, they're like, oh, this LeBron guy, he's going to be real good. It turns out he was really good. Yeah. So I tend to think that people know what they're talking about. And I don't hate Lawrence per se, but he has not impressed me at all so far. Here's the numbers you've got projected for him. You got 322 out of 490, a little over 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, 12 picks, 48 rushes for 312, and another 3 touchdowns. That's good enough for only quarterback 25 on your projection board. You've actually got him at 16 on your big board, which seems unbelievably high to me. And just there's some issues I have with some of your Jaguars rankings in general. This is not my biggest issue, but I would just implore you to pull him down. He is not the 16th most coveted quarterback. He should not be 16 on your big board. Yeah,
he's going to get a bump down. That discrepancy is way too high. And the reason I'm down on him, I guess we can start over here. You see the rush attempts 480, pass attempts 500. Their offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell, is 10 of it is 14 years, been the most run-heavy guy, or top 10 in rush attempts, rather. The last time he had a rookie quarterback, he led the NFL in rush attempts with the Seahawks. That was Russell Wilson. Their passing game coordinator is Brian Schottenheimer. And the reason that name should make your ears curl is he was the guy, offensive coordinator for the Seahawks the last however many years that we've been saying, let Russ cook. He's the guy that continues to go back to the run over and over again. They hired him as their passing game coordinator. Like, that is hideous beyond all.
They just recirculate these guys. It's like you lose your job and, there's only 32 teams. So in theory, there's only 32 positions in the world where you could get this, and you could just objectively be the worst going at that position, and someone else takes a gamble on you. And then often a team after that too. I know. You have to be so bad to not get another job in the NFL. Like, you just got to get your foot in the door somehow, and then you've just got some sort of gainful employment for life.
Exactly. Yeah, it blows my mind these guys continue to get jobs. But all that to say is I think they're going to be among the most run-heavy teams. So all these people projecting big seasons for Lawrence because he was so good in college, which I get. I understand the talent. And guys I really respect. Evan Silva said Lawrence would be one of his breakout quarterbacks. I love Silva. I think he's one of the smartest in the industry. But that is just not a take I'll ever get on board with. I guess the one thing I'm happy about is, and sorry to Tebow, a guy that I respect, a hard worker, all that good stuff. But the fact that he's gone makes me feel just a little bit better about Lawrence, because I could have seen that being like a Taysom Hill coming in and stealing rushing work. Lawrence is sneaky athletic. He could end up running in for like 8 touchdowns or so, depending on what type of plays they call. So it's going to be very, very run heavy. I think it's going to cap Lawrence's ceilings. He's to reach any type of ceiling going to need some rushing touchdowns, because otherwise I don't see this going anywhere. It's an awful offense and an awful team. All right, well, let's talk about the running back one, who is at least worth talking about. Of course, Etienne out for the year, as if things weren't already bad for these guys. So James Robinson, who was actually a legit fantasy stud last year, is now you'd have to say the undisputed top running back. 259 carries for a little over 1,400 yards for you. that is a significant chunk of any ground pie. 8 touchdowns, adding 38 catches for 270 and another 2 scores. He is backed up by, I know I'm using the corpse reference a lot, but he's backed up by the corpse of Carlos Hyde, which is only slightly worse than the animated actual living body of Carlos Hyde, who is going to be rushing 134 times for 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, according to the Wolves projections, adding another 25 catches for not much yardage. You've got Robinson by projection as your running back 13. You've got him at 17 on the big board. Hyde, you've got at 47 and 49, respectively. Not excited about him, obviously. Yeah, and I actually just kind of bumped both of those numbers down as you were talking. I was like, that 5.5 yards per carry. I think I had that in for Etienne because he is so explosive, such a speedster. I bumped that down to 4.6 for Robinson, and that still might be generous. As good as he is, this line has not opened up a single lane this entire preseason. So I bumped him down to 4.6 yards per carry, which brings it down to 1,191 rushing yards, which I'm sure will hurt him in those projection standings. But there's a lot to like about this guy. Again, we just talked about how they've led the leagues in rush attempts. Darren Bevel and Brian Schottenheimer, both separate times they had rookie quarterbacks. It was Mark Sanchez for Schottenheimer. It was Russell Wilson for freaking Bevel. So ultimately, I think there's going to be a ton of rushing volume. Now that Etienne's removed, I think the vast majority of that does go to James Robinson, a guy that won people leagues last year. I love the player. He won me some leagues last year, can do it as a receiver as well, but he's not going to be that 90% snap guy we saw last year. Carlos Hyde comes in and Urban Meyer standover that from Ohio State. He brings in his own guys. Guarantee you he gets way more carries than he ever should. Just to be a nuisance, he's going to come in at the red zone every now and again. So that's going to be more annoying than it should be. But for Robinson's credit, Urban Meyer did come out and say, I love this guy. I think he's the foundation of our team. Like, we're going to be great with him. And he does run the inside zone. In college, the inside zone game for Urban Meyer was fantastic. Think about his love for workhorses. You had Zeke over 300 touches every year, Dobbins over 300. I mean, he built it around a workhorse, and that's his style. So Robinson could see close to 300 touches this year, in which case, he'll be around 3 steal. And that's kind of what I'm expecting. I actually do really like Robinson as a player. I like his projected volume, and he's just about the only piece of this certainly of the running game. There's only one other receiver I'm really interested in. Don't want Lawrence, do want Robinson, and then there's a couple receivers I think we need to talk about.
All right, we're going to talk about the receivers because I'm about to take some real exception with some of your projections on some on some of these receivers. They have talent. They have a talented receiving corps. Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark. We've got Jones, you've got projected for 67 catches for a little under 900 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's on 105 targets. Shenault, you've got 86 catches, 920 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's on 115 targets. You've got DJ Chark, getting 56 catches, 756, 7 touchdowns on 90 targets. Now, the projections, okay. And I'm not sure how you possibly have this particular guy as high as you do, but you got Jones by projections, you got 38 and 48 on the big board. You got Chark, 52 projections and 45 on the big board. Laviska Shenault, you have 29th on your big board. You have him 13th in your projections.
Wow.
So here are the guys that you have scoring less than Laviska Shenault.
This is going to be wrong, by the way.
Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, McLaurin, Godwin, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, Julio, Brandon Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, Claypool, T. Higgins, Adam Thielen, just to name a few. I don't know. I looked at this several times. I was like, this can't be right. Is this right?
Yes and no. No, I don't think he outscores all those guys, hence why he's 29 on my big board as compared to 13. What I did is after Etienne got hurt, I bumped a ton of that volume going to Shenault. I'll have to revisit it. I'll relook at it. And I have a conversation coming up tomorrow with Jordan Shipley of Sports Illustrated covering the Jags. So what I am projecting here, though, is there's one thing beyond the inside zone game that Urban Meyer does well, and that's using this joker type of guy. Think about Percy Harvin at Florida, Curtis Samuel at Ohio State. Those guys, if you did like fantasy college football, would have been some of the biggest monsters, averaging over 24 points per game for Harvin, 25 points per game for Samuel. He uses them so versatile and so uniquely as both runners and receivers, drawing up tons, peppering these guys with screens, with end arounds. And that role has been a huge producer in this offense. So I thought that was going to be Etienne. Now that he's out, Shenault's by far the best guy they have for that role on the roster. Now, he's not quite as quick as a Harvin, as a Samuel, as the Etienne that he had envisioned, and that's probably why he took Etienne, because Shenault, even though he's a good runner, he's more of a powerful north-south bruising type of runner, not so much the quick, shifty guy that he's made his money with Urban Meyer in the past. So I don't know if the marriage will be quite as great as these projections say, but I do think there is so much upside with Shenault because of his versatility as a runner and receiver to be this joker. And if he inherits that role and Urban Meyer actually gives him what he uses college players at, and is coaching it on the field with a megaphone, is any indication he's probably going to be putting in the same type of scheme, Shenault could have a monster season. I love the player, love the talent, and I love the role I think he's going into. I just want to make sure that is the actual role. Hence the big discrepancy. I guess 13 would be like everything works out for Laviska Shenault. He certainly won't be scoring more than most of those names you said unless he ultimately hits his ceiling. So this is a ceiling projection. I do have to bring that back and dial that back a little bit, given my overall hatred for this team and for this offense. But if anybody from this receiving core is going to explode, I think it would be him. Marvin Jones has also played really well with Trevor Lawrence so far as his preferred target. But Shenault's the one I'm looking at. I love him. He's fallen to around like 10 right now. It would be an absolute steal. I have him as a round 6 type of player. So even though my projections are a little absurd right now, and I will bump those down, I still want to emphasize I really, really, really like Laviska Shenault. I love James Robinson as well. And Marvin Jones, I don't mind at his price. Other than that, I'm not going to touch any more Jags.
That's completely fair. The tight end situation I have written next to it, I just said not worth mentioning at all.
Nope. No, I think 63 yards and 189. I just threw a couple little passes to their way. I don't even know who these guys are. Chris Manhertz and James O'Shaughnessy. Like, fucking no, nothing.
You're not buying James O'Shaughnessy's stock?
No, say sprinting to get to that. No. And that's why I do think like Marvin Jones and Shenault could both be viable because there's not a whole lot. Chark as well. I think this is one of those offenses where there's really no one else to throw to beyond those 3 receivers and James Robinson, and on a team that should probably play from behind a bit. So I do think 3 receivers coming out of here, even if it's a gross offense, and even if Trevor Lawrence only throws for 3,500 yards, that could still sustain 3 decent wide receivers in fantasy, particularly, again, Shenault, I want to emphasize.
Before we move on to the last team, I will just say Marvin Jones, who I did get in my auction draft for $2. He's on my bench.
I like that.
He was the wide receiver 18 last year.
That's wild. That's amazing. That's for the Lions, right?
Yeah, those are, unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure I looked that up actually.
It doesn't surprise me though. I've always been a huge Marvin Jones, like as a player fan. He comes up with some jump balls that you're just like, where did this guy come from? Such a good leaper, great route runner. Like he's going to be Trevor Lawrence's best friend in terms of his ability to separate better than anyone on this team, in terms of his way to win the contested balls when he doesn't separate better than anyone else on this team. I think Marvin Jones, maybe that's the reason I should be a little lower on Shenault. I think he's the best for sure over Chark. I think a lot of people still have Chark number 1 among these receivers. I have him number 3 among these receivers. I am off the Chark train. That finger injury didn't hurt, certainly didn't help, but I already had him 3rd among these receivers. So I think Jones and Shenault, wide receiver 18. That's kind of crazy though, Nat. You had me guess, I would have probably said like 27. So
I would have said in the 25 to 30 range also, but we would have been wrong, I think.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the one team in the division who I actually think is pretty good.
Yeah,
that's the Tennessee Titans.
That's for last.
And Ryan Tannehill, who has continued to impress. Let's say it. Like the guy's been a legit quarterback for a few years now. And you've got him going 366 for 550 for almost 4,500 yards, 33 touchdowns, 11 picks. And adding, the guy is a legit running threat also, 56 rushes, 263 for 6 touchdowns. And that's good enough for your quarterback 11 projected wise. You actually have him 10 on your big board.
You have A.J. Brown, you have Julio Jones, in addition to a running back that's going to constantly be moving you down to the red zone. Tannehill does have that sneaky, as you said, a little bit of athleticism to him. He's going to run in for scores. He's going to chuck throws. Been among the most efficient quarterbacks the last 2 years. 2 years ago was the quarterback 2 from the time he took over to the end of the year. Last year, he put up 350 fantasy points. If you did that any other season other than last year, it would have been top 3 from like 2019 to 2012. He would have been top 3 quarterback. Last year, it just so happened that 7 quarterbacks put up 370 points. It was a ridiculous year for quarterback scoring. So he was only quarterback 8, but he still had a monster season. The one concern for me is Arthur Smith has left, one of the best play callers, I think, in this NFL game right now. Did so many wonders to like kind of get Ryan Tannehill de-Gaced, like get Gase out of his system, helped him come along, and was such a great play caller, especially in the red zone. Titans have been number 2 and number 1 in red zone efficiency in back-to-back years. That's Smith's calling card. I hope that their new offensive coordinator can do that. Todd Downing. The last time he was a play caller with the Raiders, and it was the year after Derek Carr was your MVP, Todd Downing came in and just fucked everything up. He had Crabtree, he had Cooper, he had a great Derek Carr, and the offense just sucked. So I am a little nervous. Like if he fucked that offense up, You say, how could you possibly screw up A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, Derrick Henry, and a good quarterback in Tannehill?
Maybe there's people that could find a way.
Right? This guy could. That's my one real worry with Tannehill and really anybody in this offense beyond, of course, injury. But I still think the guy's in for a great year. How could he not?
I agree. He's a guy that I wouldn't have minded getting in the draft. He was in my kind of Stafford, Brady, Tannehill. I had all those guys kind of, I was like, I want to get one of those guys, maybe Fitzpatrick, maybe a little bit below those guys. I ended up getting Stafford for $2.
I love it. Yeah. I would say that's the exact tier he should be in. And like, I keep saying, you need Trey Lance, you need Justin Fields, and then a bridge. It would be that much better to go like Tannehill round 9 and then one of those guys to know you have like a legit top 10 quarterback all year. And you're not just banking on maybe Fitz will blow up. I think he will, but that's certainly less of a floor than what Ryan Tannehill's bringing. So round 9, especially if you've already filled out your receivers, you got your good tight end and Logan Thomas or better, and you have at least 2 to 3 running backs, I think it might make even more sense to go like Tannehill 9, Trey Lance 10, and kind of give yourself a legit, like not just a bridge, but a really firm bridge that even if Lance didn't play, you have yourself a good top 10 option all year.
That's what I have Stafford and Lance.
And I think that's amazing. Like, that's beautiful.
I did pretty much the same thing that you recommended there. All right, let's move on to the running back work. And before I talk about this guy,
the man,
I just want to say, think about the years that we spent. I mean, how many years has Henry been in the league now? 4, 5? What?
I think this is his 6th season this year. Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember when he came in? Yeah, it was the first season of the RSJ, I think.
Yeah.
That
he was our flag.
You were just like so all over this guy, and he's the same, combine stats as like Von Miller, but he's a running back, all this stuff, and you were just like, it must have been driving you crazy.
Yeah.
The first 3 years or whatever of this guy's career, because you were just like, I see what's there. This guy is like a dump truck that runs like really fast and hard, and no one can stop him. Just give him the ball, and they just didn't. Yeah. They just didn't do it. And then at some point, I guess last year, the year before, they're like, hey, I got a crazy idea. Let's start handing this guy that's like the size of a dump truck and speed of a dump truck the ball.
Something sexier than a dump truck, like a freight train or a bulldozer. Dump truck makes it sound like it's just like gross.
But he has dump truck numbers. These numbers
Eddie Lacy's a dump truck now.
No, like, Eddie Lacy is like a cement mixer. that like maxes out at like 30 on the highway. There's some fast, like expensive dump trucks that you wouldn't want to get hit by.
Okay, fine, fair.
And he's like, he's a 2021 brand new dump truck, state of the art, everything, nice rims and all that stuff.
Ripping for 80 miles an hour down the highway.
Right. and these are dump truck numbers. That 366 carries, 1,830 yards, 20 touchdowns on the ground.
Yeah.
And like no receiving work.
Yep.
like 10 catches or something like that. That's why I say he's dump truck. If he's catching balls out of the backfield and stuff, he's maybe some more versatile vehicle. You don't have to be when you're this guy. You just like, give me the ball and I'm just going to plow through people. And man, he's good at it.
Sure is. Yeah. And I think what you bring up, one is I've always loved the guy, and none of those years did I really ever jump ship. So it burned me for 2 seasons, and ever since then, it's been glorious. That's kind of why I wish we got into Dynasty earlier, because I've always said, don't worry, like this moron coach, someday someone's going to come in and give this guy the rock. And in 2019, it became very clear Arthur Smith was that guy. We were plus 27, I think, ECR. He was going, Derrick Henry was going, it's kind of crazy to think of these days. He was going round 3 because of all that misusage, even though Arthur Smith came out and said, I'm going to feed this guy all he can handle. People didn't trust it. And we're like, you can get Derrick Henry in round 3. This is a joke. He should be going mid-round 2 at the latest. And, of course, he led the league in rushing back-to-back years, led the league in rushing touchdowns back-to-back years. And guess what? If Nick Chubb doesn't do it, then Derrick Henry's doing it again. Absolute steamroller. I think there's so many, and a lot of guys I do respect, I think get way too cute about Derrick Henry. I get he doesn't catch passes. He was still the PPR RB3 last year, despite catching nothing. The same thing is going to happen this year. Sure, Julio Jones is there and going to take some touches, but he's also going to help this offense be in the red zone even more. He's going to help it. So how do you stack the box when you have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones on the outside? You can't. So the lanes are going to be wider than Derrick Henry's ever seen. The line is still very, very solid, and I think all but one starter returns. The guy is just a steamroller, and anybody looking to like make him their first round bust, so many people are doing that, and it's just like, why? He's a tank. He's not going to get hurt. I mean, knock on wood, anybody could get hurt any given week, but like this guy is built. Tank is better than a fucking dump truck, Nat.
I don't know, man. I don't think a tank's is being that fast.
He doesn't need to be fast. He just steers.
But he is really fast.
Do you really think of dump trucks as fast? Like who thinks dump trucks?
All right, so here's the thing. When you hear the word dump truck, like you're probably thinking of like a dump truck from like the 80s riding down like a dirt road with like 6 guys in the back and like the bumpers falling off. I'm thinking of like jet black, like 2021, just like one of those dump trucks where you could fit like 8 people in the cab and like they go like 90 really easily. Really expensive, like something I could never afford.
Okay, fine.
Like, I mean, I drive a total mom car. I drive a Honda Pilot. I mean, I don't think of him as a Honda Pilot.
No, and nor should you. The guy's a monster. And I think anybody that ranks him otherwise is just trying to find a reason to be bold. Like Henry's going to be top 5 no matter what your format is, even if he doesn't catch the ball. He's going to score. He almost had 20 touchdowns last year. Like he's going to smash all of he's just gonna be great. Don't get cute. Take him in your top 3. Don't listen to everybody else that had it. I was in a PPR draft for an expert league, Nat, and I had pick 11. He went pick 10. I was sitting there like licking my lips, like, oh my God, I'm about to get Derrick Henry at 11. Like I couldn't believe it. And he had the pick before me. I got Travis Kelce, which I was going to say.
Did you get Kelce?
I did get Kelce, which I loved at 11. But man, the disrespect for Henry, I just simply don't get. It's far too cute in my opinion.
Disrespect him at your own peril, people.
Absolutely.
And speaking of dump trucks riding down dusty roads, I don't know. I'm from the South from an extremely rural place, and I rode in a lot of backs of dump trucks down, like 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour down these bumpy roads. And just looking back on it, just amazing. I was never like just rocketed out of the back of one of those things. Like it's something I would have a heart attack if I saw my kid doing now. But just did it all the time. Things are different in the South.
Right.
Anyway,
it sounds like it.
Right. Anyway, receiving is a solid, really good 1-2 receiving core. Do you think it's the best 1-2 that there is in the league?
Yeah, as long as Julio still has it, and for when he was healthy last year, he certainly still had it.
Okay,
I think it's the best 1-2. Yeah.
Okay, AJ Brown
trios, but yeah.
Okay, maybe the best duo in the league. AJ Brown, 90 catches, 1,341 yards, 12 touchdowns. That's on 138 targets. Good enough for wide receiver 6 projection wise. You've got him at 8 on the big board. Julio Jones, 88 catches on 132 targets. A lot of targets for both of these guys. 1,232 yards, 7 touchdowns. And that's good enough for 19 on each of your lists.
Yeah, I love them both. I mean, certainly A.J. Brown, one of my favorite players to watch. I think maybe the best, like, all-around wide receiver in the game in terms of going deep, in terms of after the catch, in terms of being able to out-leap defenders. He does it all. I love A.J. Brown. I would put him as a top 3 talent in the league. Nothing bad to say about the guy other than there's rumblings like, he's expected to be ready for week 1 after having knee surgery this offseason, and that kind of came out of nowhere.
You just kind of slide that in between other stupid random news.
Right, exactly.
Oh, also, his knee surgery went well.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's like, oh, that's worrisome. I mean, he did what he did last year. I believe he finished like number 7 in fantasy points on a destroyed knee all year. I can only imagine, assuming he's healthy, what he could do. I had him ready to be number 2 in my list until Julio Jones got here. So now that will obviously become another guy eating targets, whereas A.J. Brown could have been like a 200 target guy, 138, 132 for him. But I do like that about this offense is there's only 3 mouths. It's very condensed, and it's 3 great mouths. And I think all of them, there's certainly enough volume to feed 1, 2, 3, Henry, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. I guess the one rub would be like, if one gets hurt, what kind of happens? Well, they could go berserk, or the whole thing can kind of compose on itself because Josh Reynolds, Des Fitzpatrick, like, there's nothing really behind them. And then you look at the tight ends, Anthony Firkser, no. Jeff Swain, like, I don't even know if I'll have to go to the tight ends because they're useless. It's going to go all A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry. And I have no problem getting any of those guys and stacking them up with Tannehill. Like, very high-powered offense that only goes to 3 mouths. That's what you want in fantasy.
Worst tight end division in football. I'm going to say that now that we've done all 8. I'm just looking at the tight end options on these teams, and it's like, Mo Alley Cox is the cream of the crop.
I was going to say, who was the best of all these teams? Like, yeah, Mo Alley Cox.
For tight ends, it's definitely the Colts tight ends. But but that's damning with faint praise. It's not a great squad.
No, not at all.
Right. So anyway, if you're going to take my parting shot here is you don't want to go all in on AFC South tight ends.
No, not at all.
That would ruin your team.
It would. And I thought Firkser might be useful. He was good in his starts last year, had a couple big games, but he's been running second team this whole entire preseason. I don't understand that. I thought he was going to be their kind of Jonnu Smith in an offense that's been very creative with their tight ends in the past. But if he can't run first team when there's no one ahead of him, what's his point? What's his role? So he's the guy that I did like for a little while, bumped him down big time so far this preseason. There's no tight end that I want in this division. Yeah.
All right. That wraps up the AFC South, and that wraps up the NFL. We did all 8 divisions. We said we would. We actually followed through and completed the task. That's 8 divisions down. That was fun. Absolutely. We do have some comments to hit. Some the regulars and some other fellows have been commenting as the show's been going on. I got 15, 20 minutes before I got to go pick up my kids, so let's do it.
Let's do it.
Charlie, yo. What's up, Charlie?
Great to see you, Preble.
Cameron Q. Geckel. What's up, guys? I know. It's good to have Geckel back.
Ben, I haven't said that name in a minute. Geckel, great to see you. So pumped you're here. I'm pumped for another great season with you. I know you've killed it ever since we've been around. You're an OG, man. Great to see you.
Seamus. Second day in a row. Seamus sighting. Hey, boys. Hey, Seamus.
We got a big draft night tonight for Seamus. His first league tonight. Another league Saturday.
What kind of winning clip does Seamus have with the? I mean, Seamus is we've had fun with Seamus on some of our segments before. Let's be real. He's a winning fantasy owner.
Oh, absolutely. He's done a feat I've never pulled off. He went back to back to back. I've never been able to do 3 in a row. Seamus has. He's a true wolf. I love Seamus. Love Seamus.
Love Seamus. Brian, let's go.
BK is back. Great to see you, BK.
All right. Geckel says, drafted Tuesday night and murdered it. Crown me the champ right now. Good. Give us a testimonial after you hoist the trophy, dude.
Absolutely, Geckel. Let us know the squad. Unlike some other team, podcasts out there, we actually want to hear about your team. So let us know who you came up with. I can't wait to hear your team.
Charlie Preb's got to dig deep, Wolf. I think he's talking about how hot it is.
Oh, I'm gutting this one out. I probably look horrendous. Thank God I got my hair cut at least, so that way it's like a little bit cooler. And you did too, looking good with the haircut, Truth.
Thank you.
It was necessary this week by all means.
Giuseppe Russo, my guys, what's up?
Yes.
I know, back from Italy, and now he's just back full force. Love having him back. Tunes referencing the new haircut. Yes, I got this like 2 hours ago.
Nice.
Jay West, I got Cup. I got Robinson. Good trade.
I'm guessing Cup. You said I got Cup for Robinson or the other way around. I have them ranked. Honestly, if I looked at my big board, I don't know off the top of my head. I think they're literally 35 and 36, though. So it depends on what your team needs were. I typically prefer the workhorse in a given situation. But, man, I have Cup projected for top 10 numbers. So, I love both of these guys. It's a very fair deal. I don't know if anybody won that trade.
BK says, Wolf.
What's up, BK? Is there 2 BKs in here? I thought Brian maybe changed his name somehow. I have no idea.
Jocko Corey. I'm bad with jumbles of letters.
Yeah. Loves Laviska. He's with me.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know, man. I'm skeptical. By the way, I'm just doing a little bit of looking up right now. You have Cooper Kupp 35 on your big board. You have Allen Robinson 24.
Oh, is it Allen? I was imagining it was James Robinson. I'd rather have Allen Robinson.
That's a good question. Actually, I didn't even consider that. You have James Robinson 32.
Yeah. Can we add to the video chat? There is a way, like I could invite people to the chat, but that might be tricky to do right now, Steve. Let me know what you're going for.
Yeah, we need a producer to filter stuff like that before we just throw people in the air. Charlie Manolakis, thoughts on Wentz as a late round 2 QB superflex steal? No.
No. I mean, 2 QB, again, he came out 22 in my projections, but I think that's generous. I'm going to probably have to revisit that one. The Reich Wentz connection is the only reason to have any type of faith in them. I just have no faith in what I saw last year.
BK says, Bus.
Bus is another one from the bachelor party
Wolf.
this weekend. We got Evan Bus in the house. Bus, great to see you. All the bachelor party reuniting here. We got to get Willard in here now. Love it, though, guys. Good to see you. That was a blast of a weekend. Those two made it.
Preb says, we got any news on Wentz and Nelson?
Both of them are expected to be back by week 1, Prebs. So that's good news for the offense for sure.
Charlie Preb says, T.Y. saves all his power for the Texans. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to – not a bad team to blow up on, I guess.
It's classic how, like, it's clockwork. Every single year, he just smashes the Texans. Even in his horrible year last year, smashes the Texans.
Bus says Cox should go big. I don't know.
Mo Alley Cox, baby. Nothing better than the big Cox. Yeah. If somebody's going to go big there, it might be Mo Alley. It might be the rookie Kyle Granson. I don't know, but Reich does pepper his tight ends. So does Carson Wentz. Someone's going to emerge there. Maybe it's the beanstalk. I don't know, but there's definitely some unmined, unsexy upside over there with the Colts tight ends.
I agree with you on the unsexy part. Mitch says, what's up, guys? Mitch joining us at 2:05. What's up, guys? Charlie Preb says, thank God I'm not the only one who hates Urban Meyer. No, you are not. It sounds like you do, I do, the Wolf does, and everyone on the Jacksonville Jaguars also does.
The Jaguars do. BK agrees. Urban's a fucking bum. He is. He's awful. I don't see a situation where he makes it out of Jacksonville this year. I really don't.
Kyle Ellis says, 10-team PPR. We keep 3 players. Trade Dobbins and Lockett for Mixon. Dobbins and Lockett are on my bench. Mixon would be my flex if I trade for him.
I would, especially if those guys are on your bench, Kyle, I'm typically in favor. That's a lot, but I'm not a huge Dobbins guy. Lockett, I do like a lot, but inconsistent. And I'm buying into Mixon. You know, that's 2 good players to ship for a fairly risky player. But as we talked about when we did the North yesterday, I think Mixon, best player in camp, they're saying, centerpiece of the offense, no interest in load management, all the things you want to hear. No Gio Bernard. I think this is finally the year. It's not a 3-game delay until you get the blow-ups. I think he just starts hitting that ground running. I would pull that trigger, yes.
Also, in general, my fantasy philosophy is I'm gradually trying to steadily improve my starting lineup.
Always,
so, you know, I mean, depth is important. Don't get me wrong, but I'm rarely making trades for depth. I'm usually making trades because I'm like, oh, this guy's going to average 3 more points a game in my flex than the guy I had. So generally speaking, I like, if you're going to get a starter out of it, I would probably do it.
And in 10-team as well, like the waiver wire is going to have plenty of replacement for your bench. There's always good players on there. So it's almost like Dobbins, Lockett for Mixon plus whoever's the best on the waiver wire. And in a 10-team league, that's usually an actual viable person. So yeah, I would pull that trigger, Kyle Ellis. Yes.
Mike says, check your messages, sent you my last 2 drafts. I want to hear about them. So
I do too, Mike. I'll have to make sure to check that. I get back faster just in general, Mike. Facebook messages go to a weird spot in my phone, and it's weird. Facebook kind of sucks these days, Mike. I'm not going to lie. So if you want a quicker response, at RotoStreetWolf on Twitter, I'm much more active on there, much more easier to find my messages, or on Instagram as well. But I will eventually check it now that I know to check. But just in general, if you want a faster response from me, Twitter's the best place to go.
Charlie says, so where should J-Rob go in the draft now? I did just read the Wolf has him 32 on his big board.
32 overall.
We're talking about a mid-third rounder.
Yeah, mid-third round. He's part of that tier of running backs alongside like Dobbins and Swift just below him. I think Montgomery, Carson right above him. It's one of those tiers that I need my second running back by the time that tier dries up, or I'm in some deep shit. So, Robinson has emerged into that tier now with this injury. If you have, if you need a running back there you go.
Matthew Noto, I think on a different platform.
Yeah, usually on Periscope, but Noto joining us on YouTube. Love to see it.
Do you feel comfortable taking Lamb over Cooper in the 3rd round?
Yeah, I feel very comfortable. I have him ranked that way. I think Lamb's the better player, even though that's crazy to say because Cooper's a very good player. That's no disrespect or slight to him. Lamb's a different breed, though. Like they're saying you remember Ochoa, Nat? I had him on the show not too long ago, and he was saying it was like they call it the Dez days because Dez would just come into camp and nobody could stay with him. CeeDee Lamb, he was saying like it reminded him of the Dez days, and that he hasn't seen that. Even as good as Cooper's been, he hasn't seen that since Dez. I think this guy is truly special. My one worry with both of those guys is what's the deal with Dak's shoulder? Why is Adam Schefter saying this guy's not 100%? He won't be all year. That stuff freaks me out a little bit, makes me a little bit nervous for sure after the guy was on pace to throw for like 6K yards last year. But of those two, yes, I go Lamb over Cooper for sure.
DiNucci made a terrible throw last night.
I didn't watch Hard Knocks yet.
It was a preseason game.
It was a game last night?
Well, maybe it was a replay, but they were playing the Texans.
Yeah, that was last week. Yeah.
Okay, well.
It was horrible.
It might as well have been live to me. And it was a just terrible pick.
Yes.
All right. Toon says, hey, so my big draft is this Sunday afternoon. When should I print out projections to make sure they are most up to date?
So especially this weekend, I'm going to really make a very concerted effort to make sure the big board's up to date and the projections are up to date every single day. Because I know this is one of the most popular draft day weekends. So I'll be there's games on Friday. There's no games tonight, which kind of sucks. I was hoping for some preseason action, but no games tonight. So after we see some action on Friday, if there's anything to learn or change from that, I'll be sure to update it after my conversations with Bears and Jags guys. If there's anything to change for, I will do it. So Tunes, I would wait till, probably Sunday because there's going to be games on Saturday as well for us to account for. But text me. You know how to get a hold of me, Tunes. You can write to me. Is this your most updated list? And I'll make sure for a legend like yourself, we have the best, most updated projections and rankings for you.
Charlie says, dump truck is a term of respect. You're goddamn right it is, Charlie.
I've never thought of it as that other than when you're like, damn, that girl is a dump truck. And I'm like, yeah, I like that. But I just think of
I would tend to not think of it as a compliment for a woman.
I don't know. That's what all the rappers say now. I guess I'm not a cool kid. Who knows?
Well, I mean,
let's continue
you're
on.
Cooler than me, probably. Yeah. Sammy AV14. Let's go, boys. Love the series. Thanks for all your time.
Awesome. Sammy, I love that you've shown up. I love interacting with you always, brother. And I just want to say, Charlie, you're the man. Your testimonial is amazing. We have a highlight video coming out shortly, Charlie, and you definitely make an appearance. So just putting that out there for you.
Thanks for that. Mitch Chavez, I have a draft this Saturday morning and two very competitive ones next Sunday. Let's get it, guys. All right. I want to hear about them.
Absolutely.
Toon says in the last 4 drafts with you guys, I made 3 championships and went 2-1, so I'm making money. Good. $3 signs.
That's what I like to hear. Maybe we're gonna make that money another year. And I feel like last year was one of my worst years predictions wise. So it's great to hear that you're still coming out on top, even in one of my lesser years.
You want to know? Speaking of making money, you want to know? My daughter turned 11. Yesterday actually, and one of the things that she wanted and got from my sister, she wanted a money gun. One of those things that you shoot up in the air. And it's just, yeah. And she got one, and I don't know why she wanted it, but she's just going around making it rain all the time in the house now.
Yes, I love it. That's sweet.
BK, Mike Davis will finish as an RB1 in 2021. Bucket, I don't think that's crazy, man.
It really isn't. Like, of all those guys and what the dreaded running back dead zone, very good research from a lot of guys out there about how much more mid-round receivers outscore running backs in that range. Mike Davis is one of the guys I've written in my investing guide that can ultimately break free of that dead zone. I really like Mike Davis, BK. I mean, who's in his way? They released Javian Hawkins, one of the few guys that I thought might steal some work from him. There's nothing in his way. And if Arthur Smith's as nearly as efficient and as run heavy as he was the Titans, I don't think he'll be as run heavy, but I do think he'll be a good offense. A lot of real upside with Mike Davis. He's like my favorite guy as an RB3. If I can get him like round 5, I have 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and I can sneak him in round 5 as my flex. I love that play. So I'm with you 100%, BK.
All right, Mike Clay. No Insta or Twitter for this guy. Mike, you're a man after my own heart.
An old school guy. I'll make sure to check Facebook just for you, Mike.
Mike says, first one I got was I was 7 out of 10, got Kelsey and Eckler on the way back. Last night's draft was 8 out of 12. I got Zeke, then Tyreek on the way back.
Oh, Tyreek round 2? Who the hell are you drafting with, Mike?
Not even at the turn round 2. Like that's like pick 16 insane. Or something like that.
Yeah, Zeke falling to 8 is insane as is. But then Tyreek in round 2 is just I don't know what's going on there. But
I wonder if someone picked like Tom Brady second or something.
Yeah, right.
One of those drafts. Samuel Jacobitz or Jacob. Oh man, I'm gonna mess it up. Samuel. Should I accept this trade? Derrick Henry and Deontay for Saquon, Dobbins, and Julio. I think this is a great value, PPR, by the way, although there are questions about Saquon. And then he says in his next one, I get the Saquon side.
Honestly, it sounds like you want to do the deal. It's not an unfair deal, Sam, but I am much higher on Derrick Henry than I am Saquon.
I like the Henry side more.
And I get Saquon in a PPR league, like if everything bends right for him, has as much upside as anyone other than Christian McCaffrey, like as much upside as Christian McCaffrey, I should say. The guy is a monster, but there's a lot that has to bend right. The line sucks. The offense sucks. He's got the knee coming off that. They're probably going to take him around slow. So I don't think I want that. And I love Deontay Johnson too. I've been on record. I think Deontay and Julio.
You have Deontay and Julio very comparable on your big board. They're both around 20. So let's call that a wash. So What you're really talking about is Derrick Henry for Saquon and Dobbins. And
which is good.
I don't love Dobbins.
I don't love Dobbins either. I think most people would say you have to hammer that deal. That value-wise, you probably should.
Value-wise, it does make sense. But we just spent all this time talking about Henry being a dump truck.
Yeah, I'm just such a Henry and Deontay guy. That doesn't do it for me. I'm not going to lie. I think almost everyone else in the world might say smash yes on that, but I don't. I really don't. And that's crazy.
Dump truck getting some. Hey, man, this is catching on. Baby. Wolf, it's catching on.
The dump truck love, baby.
Yeah. Toon said Barkley took his first live rep since injury. That's a big step. Yeah.
I think BK is referring to the other dump truck.
Either way, it's catching on.
Dump truck city, baby. That is a big step, Toons, though. No, I agree. If he's taking some contact, getting some hits, they say oftentimes with these injuries that the biggest thing is getting your mental side of it down, taking the contact and bouncing back up and getting your legs under you. I'm sure physically he's fine. I mean, the guy's Saquon. Those quads are just insane. Yeah. That is really big and gives me a better opinion of him. So it's getting close there, Sam. It's getting close there.
Dobbins and Julio, though, he then says the line and offense sucked in 2018 and 19.
They sure did.
Julio is definitely better than Johnson, although I still like Johnson. And then last but not least, injuries are the thing that can stop Julio.
And I'm worried about that at his age. It seems like every year he's picking up something nagging, whether he plays through it or not. This kind of become the trend with Julio, and I don't like to see that. And that is a little bit of a concern with Deontay, too, after he left 3 games without injuries. But I found this stat out the other day. So he left 3 games in quarter 1 because he got hurt. That sucks. I don't know if that's a common thing, if that's a trend, or if that's an anomaly. We'll find out this year. But in the games that he played all the way through, he saw 10 or more targets in all of them. He averaged over 12 targets a game. That would have been most in the NFL. And he scored 18.9 fantasy points per game, which would have been 4th in the NFL for Deontay Johnson. So this guy was a stud. I'm not sitting here saying it's very clear Julio's better than him, even if you guaranteed health for them both. I don't know that that's true, Sam. So it really does come down to Henry for Dobbins and Saquon. If Saquon pans out, it's a no-brainer. If he doesn't, then you fucked yourself. So you got to trust your gut on this one. To be fair, it seems like you want to do the deal. And if you want to do the deal, I don't think it's crazy at all. I'm a Henry homer, so I probably would not do it. But if you want to do the deal, you can certainly justify doing it. It's not nuts. He's doing all this stuff Robbie Anderson and I combine him and moves it. I'm going to sit here and say I'm not a big fan of doing a ton of preseason trading. If you get a good deal, go for it. But I have my guys. I drafted them for a reason. I typically stick with my squad and let's see what the fuck happens. I'm not into making all these wheeling and dealing. And it just creates a little bit of tension in your fantasy locker room before the season even starts. I don't want to send a message that this guy wasn't good enough. I drafted him. I'm going to ship him right out now. Then my locker room's never going to trust me. So I'm not a fan of all these moves. No one likes the fantasy locker room more than you, Nat. But I think you're getting too cute, Sam. I think you're just wheeling and dealing for the sake of it. In Dynasty, that's always on the table. But right, I've done 26 drafts so far. He is crazy, but it's worked out, and I'm absolutely stacked. Trades can work, and you know what? The hypothetical fantasy locker room, make your deals if you're going to get your best team from it. But to me, it's not how I play the game. So I stand pat if I'm you. But you seem like you want to do the deal. You're itching for it. You have another move in mind. You do you, my man. You do you. 26 trades so far. Some people love trading, man. Your league mates must hate you, Sam. And I love it. I respect it as a fantasy addict and enthusiast. awesome, but your league mates might just be like, fuck off, Sam. Why are you texting me again? Here's Sam Jacobowitz again, texting me another trade. Like,
yeah, he just wears him down.
And fuck the Giants. The Giants suck, Sam.
That's it, though. That's the comment section. That's the mailbag. This has been a lot of fun, guys.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for those of you. There's so many of you guys that came to all 8 of these. Awesome. A lot of you guys catching the replays, commenting in that you love it. Thank you so much. I think this will be an annual tradition after the way it went this year. I loved it. I think, Truth, you had a good time as well. Yep. For sure. So you guys are great. We really, really appreciate it. As I've said all along, these projections will be uploaded onto the site for you guys to access them, sort them by the scoring, all that stuff. I believe by the end of the week, we're working with a developer to figure out how to get those up alongside, of course, my investing guide. I know it's such a popular draft weekend, so I'll be the rest of today, all of tomorrow, till it's out. Like, I won't be stopping. I might pull an all-nighter. I haven't done that since college, but I've got the coffee ready. I bought a ton of cold brew. I'm making sure this stuff's ready for you guys this weekend, and hopefully it will be up on the site for you guys. Even if not, my big board's there, rotostreetjournal.com, or in the app as well, which I'll be updating throughout the games alongside the projections. And you can find me at RotoStreetWolf. If you got your draft coming up and you want to ask a question or two, feel free to hit me up in the DMs there on Twitter. I'll be there to find you, be there to talk with you guys. Means the world that you guys are here supporting us. And if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button. If you liked what you saw, consider subscribing as well on YouTube, turning on the bell so you know when we're live, or at the podcast as well if you prefer audio. Fantasy Fullback Dive, we paved that path to 2021 titles. Enough promotion. Thank you guys again so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I am the Wolf.
I'm the Truth.
In a world full of fantasy sheep, guys, be that wolf. Later, guys.
Later.